our previous generations didn't have the same lives that we did. There were a lot less opportunities. There are a lot many jobs, it's a lot more scope for creativity now.
Mental health a necessity, but somewhere or the other, do you believe that it is now becoming more of a commodity or an excuse rather than it being the actual problem out there?
Mental health should be something just like your basic hygiene or treating your physical health, right? It's normal for us to say, oh, I'm going to the doctor. But for some reason, some people still hesitate.
We all have our own timelines to follow,
Yeah,
but now we have a circle of people, often referred to as inner circle,
yeah.
which keep pressuring us to be the perfect one out there.
Imagine this glass was empty, okay? Because I don't know myself. I don't know what this glass can do, what it can hold, okay? Now, somebody can come and pour whatever they like into that glass because I've left it empty.
Listeners, have you ever felt you were ticking off society's checklist? The degree, the job, the relationships, marriage, and again, a long list is out there. But there was again this quiet voice that was constantly whispering, this isn't it. You were not feeling fulfilled. You were finding some disconnect. And we all, some way or the other, have realized in our lives that some way or the other, there is some gap or disjointment in our lives where our personal desires are hidden beneath our professional personas and our health is often ignored in pursuit of success. And in today's episode of We Are Listening, we are diving deep into the transition that defines us, especially the tricky, tangled ones between who we are, what we do, and how we heal. And joining us is Vasudhaa Ahuja, a powerhouse who has walked this path herself. Welcome, Vasudha.
Thank you so much for that, Pulkit. It's really, really nice to be here. I'm very excited for our discussion.
Same here, Vasudha. And I'm really excited to, learn about your journey because when we were discussing earlier, you mentioned that your journey has been transitioning from being a lawyer to being a coach today. So what that journey has been like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite an interesting journey, and I think the concept of transition came up, or me being a transition coach or calling myself that kind of coach came up because I realized what I was going through. Uh, yes, it may look like just a career change, but it's a transition because it's not one day I'm this and tomorrow I'm something else, right? It's a huge process and everything changes with that. And when you go through changes in your personal life at the same time, then all of you changes, or maybe all of you changes, and that's why your personal life and your career changes. So all of this is why the concept of transitions came up, and that's been the journey for me too.
Amazing, amazing. But help me understand, Vasudha, at this point where I would say more than 90% of the population, I might be wrong in saying the fact, but majority of the population out there is living a life which they don't align with. They don't
Mhm.
identify with. It's just that they have been burdened with the responsibilities and accountabilities of life or the families,
Yeah.
and they're just running the rat race blindly with no, happiness. They do smile, but then they have, a lot of baggage. Baggage might be a wrong word to say, but a lot of sadness behind that's there. Uh,
Mhm.
and you know, this brings me to a song, "Itna kya muskura rahe ho, kya gam hai jo chupa rahe ho." So, what's your thought behind this?
Um, so my thought behind this is it's not okay, so this word autopilot, you must have heard thrown around a lot, right? Like, and maybe a lot of coaches and a lot of us say that don't live your life on autopilot, right? For me, it was don't run the rat race. So you use that phrase great because that's where that thing inside me sort of came out, saying we're all running the rat race, right? And I think for me, it goes to my family background. But when we look around us also, um, we are kind of hardwired to meet others' expectations. By others, I mean people in our influence, people that we care about, that we respect and admire. People also who are few levels removed, okay, society in general, or what norms look like, right? And it's I think become part of our upbringing, and the scope of my work is to sort of unpack this exactly that. it's not really your fault that this is happening. Yes, like you said, people are just doing things, but actually they are sad. They think they are achieving or they feel they are achieving, but inside, it feels the complete opposite, right? You're probably stressed out, anxious, feeling imposter syndrome, self-doubt, or some kind of health issues are happening, right? And sometimes people wonder why I am successful by certain objective metrics. But the thing is, each person is different. So why do we have these objective metrics, right? The fact is, generationally, particularly, at least I can speak for Indian culture. Our previous generations didn't have the same lives that we did. There were a lot less opportunities. Abundance concept was viewed differently, right? There are a lot many jobs, it's a lot more scope for creativity now. And like I like to explain this, and sort of studying generation changes is a very big part of my work, because this is how we sort of move successfully, because I deal with millennials and Gen Z. And it's important to understand in that situation, you sort of don't think so much about, am I happy? It's about, is it working? Do I have stability? In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they were trying to, sort out the lower levels. Now, regardless of class and opportunity, we are all, our generations, millennials and Gen Z, are on the higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we need to look at that differently also. And that's where, as you go closer to self-actualization, you need to start looking inwards more rather than outward. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure, it does, but help me understand one thing, Vasudha. As the generation is progressing, we have got Gen Z coming in picture today. Uh, Mental health, a necessity, of course, no doubt about it. But somewhere or the other, do you believe that with so much being talked about mental health and so much, you know, uh, channels available to work on mental health today, it is now becoming more of a commodity or an excuse rather than it being the actual problem out there?
Hmm. What do you mean by the actual problem, if I can understand better?
Um, See, life is gonna throw challenges at you. You
Right.
cannot every time say that I'm feeling anxious and I cannot do it. I see a lot of people these days becoming very sensitive around the things, and it often feels like they are not actually dealing, but they're trying to hide behind that facade. Now, if you are in a corporate environment, now if your manager is asking accountability for you for the work that you're doing, and you say that I'm having anxiety and I cannot be doing it, then I believe there's a disconnect between the uh and a lot of times people who are actually going through it have to suffer because there are were people who have used it as an excuse and were caught, and then the person
Okay.
who's actually suffering is not able to getting that benefit of doubt that the actual person should be receiving.
So, Pulkit, it really depends who's making that judgment, right? Is the manager qualified to judge whether my anxiety is genuine as opposed to my colleagues or not? Not necessarily. Um, you know. So how do we know whether somebody is just using it, to get out of something or not take accountability, or how do you know whether, okay, this is something that's really affecting you? Everybody's experience is different. That's why what is going around, one is that mental health should be something just like your basic hygiene or treating your physical health, right? It's normal for us to say, oh, I'm going to the doctor. But for some reason, some people still hesitate. Maybe not the younger generations, maybe not Gen Z as much, but it's still there to say, oh, I'm going to my therapist, or I can't come today because I have a therapist appointment, or I will come to work an hour late because I have an appointment with my therapist or my coach, today. So I think first in the workplace, the way we do work, the way we speak, needs to evolve. It's evolving in many organizations that I support, but we have some ways to go. And I do this work. There are more coaches who are doing this work to support organizations with this. Firstly, we want to destigmatize or make it normal to have such discussions in the workplace, right? So it might also be that somebody is actually going through anxiety, but ऊपर से आपको नहीं लगता कि उनको anxiety हो रही है, right? हमें शायद, a normal person who is not qualified to diagnose or qualified to understand whether it is anxiety or not, because anxiety shows up differently in different people. If somebody is just saying it, we might want to give them the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't mean that they don't complete their responsibilities, but it's how do you support them in still completing them, but maybe they need a different kind of support. Maybe they need to be spoken to differently. Maybe, an exploratory sort of nature of their manager or their colleague should be, okay, what are you anxious about? What's going on? What's actually affecting you? It's not necessarily something personal. Maybe they genuinely don't feel competent, or maybe they have some doubts and they don't know how to ask, and that's compounding, right? Maybe they have a fear of speaking up. We don't know. That person is just saying, I'm anxious, I can't do it. So at work, first spread awareness about the fact that people can talk about this. Let's not judge each other and make these assessments about whether somebody is allowed to or not. Yes, when it affects a lot of things, it's important to have safe discussions about the fact that, look, this is where you're at, this is where we need to be. What is the true support that you need? In that situation, a neutral external party is helpful. What do I mean by that? If organizations impanel therapists, mental health practitioners, coaches that do this work, the coach not only, sort of looks after the interests of the organization or business interests, but also of the individual's interests, and we find a middle ground. It becomes a safe space for that employee or that member to voice their concerns. So it probably may not actually go that deep or turn into like an anxiety disorder or something, major. It gets alleviated and they're still equipped with the tools to build resilience, the tools to build their ability to keep pushing forward and growing. At this stage, the way millennials and Gen Z have been brought up, for whatever reason, our parents may argue that we've had easier lives, we are spoiled for choice. But the downside of that is we don't know. We have too many options. We're overloaded with options. You make a choice not with all the correct information. We are also not brought up with the tools on how to think for ourselves, how to connect with yourself. What does it mean to know yourself? Because this gap is there, you've just reached anxiety because you're not in tune with what's happening to you. Subconsciously, something is happening and it's just coming out saying, oh, I'm anxious. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. It's too stressful. It's too serious, this, that, and all. So I think these are the things that we need to bring in and change the way we interact with each other. Creating emotionally safe environments would be a good way to overcome that.
That's a nice way to put it. The communication aspect that you brought in, where the managers can go out and talk instead of just giving a benefit of doubt or assuming, they go out and talk to people. That's going to solve a lot of problems, I believe. But I guess that's the most common thing that's missing from the whole puzzle as well, where people don't just talk, they assume. Let's spread the awareness out there. This podcast is again a medium through which we want to spread awareness. One interesting thing that I came across, Vasudha, your organization is called turtling, or the concept that you focus on is called
Yeah.
turtling. So why turtling? What's the ideology behind it?
Okay, that's one of my favorite questions actually. So the thing is, the concept of a turtle came into my life when I, maybe you can say 10, 11 years ago. Maybe little before I had just started college. And at that point, it was just a motive. It was just around in my life, and I was intrigued by turtles. But this stuck with me, and this analogy kept building. And I was always that person. And I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? So I look back and I realize now, but I was always that person who was like, I don't want to run the rat race. Why do I have to keep chasing things? Aram se karo, slowly, steadily. And that basic story of the hare and the tortoise stuck with me. Okay, it's something that my grandfather told me and it just stuck. I mean, my grandfather's told me a lot, but for some reason, the simple story is what stuck. And the idea that if you keep taking one step forward, okay, it doesn't matter how big or small, one step and it's forward, you will reach your goal. You don't have to keep up, okay? The hare, basically, the rabbit, has a different set of legs, different body structure, different personality. He's gonna do his thing differently. What's the point of trying to compete with somebody who is completely different, even if your goal is the same? Right? So it's that which I built on, right? So this concept of turtling basically Now things are going to get a bit nerdy, okay? Now, so I want you to imagine a shell of a turtle, okay?
Mhm.
When the turtle's surrounding environment becomes uncomfortable, confusing, or unsafe, the turtle goes inside its shell. We know this, right? The shell is very strong. We say the turtle carries its home on its back, right? Because that's where it's safe and that's where it has resources, okay? That's where it's protected. And it's not like the turtle won't come out of its shell. The turtle wants to come out of its shell. The turtle wants to be out in the world. But things are happening which right now are not making sense. So I'm going to go inside my shell. But slowly, slowly, the turtle pokes its head out of the shell, sometimes to check, is it okay? Is it not? And until it's fully safe, it doesn't fully come out and start, moving forward. That's the analogy that we use at Happy Turtling when we work together. Whether it's like some of our structured programs, whether it's just being part of the community or just one-off sessions, this concept is what we build on, right? How does that play out? There are certain ingredients, you could say, or how we have like vitamins that are good for us that make your hair beautiful and your nails strong. The same kind of material, similar kind of materials like cartilage and things like that are what make up the turtle's shell. And there are layers and layers of it, okay? All of those components are essential components to make that shell strong and resilient. What are those components for you if you are a turtle, right? One, awareness, or rather self-awareness, okay? You become aware of where you are, who you are at. Where am I now? Take stock of your position now. What are my skills? What are my strengths? By strengths, I don't just mean what you're good at. I mean, what energizes you? What is fueling you? That's a strength because it's making you stronger. What are my weaknesses? What is draining my energy? Okay. That's self awareness to get knowledge of all of this, get knowledge of the situation. What is my problem? What are my hurdles? What is not working for me? Okay. All of that is awareness about yourself. Next is self acceptance. Now, once you've done all this work and gotten awareness about yourself in a situation and all of that, there are things that you need to make peace with and accept that this is what it is. This is where I'm at. This is a big thing that, particularly, many of us who are younger and who've not sort of, been able to do that deep work, we're unable to accept ourselves where we are now. I'm not good at this. I'm not great at speaking in public. I'm not very good at content creation, or I'm not very good at, asserting myself. And what will you do? The internal subconscious narrative is being unkind to yourself, beating yourself up. That means you're not accepting where you're at. If you don't accept where you're at, you can't move forward, you can't fix it. So, this is a very essential step, right? So, this is another ingredient for the shell, which is resilience. Think of it that way. So, self awareness, self acceptance. Third is self resourcefulness. So, the awareness you've gotten, you've accepted, okay, this is where I'm at, and that's okay. Now I want to move forward. Maybe I want to make some changes in my life, in my skills, in my mindset. Okay. What do I have already within me that I can leverage? What are the resources already at my disposal? These are internal resources as well as external resources. Okay. But it's about resourcing yourself, believing that I have and I'm equipped to make these changes and move forward in my life. Okay. So it's building this sort of quality of self resourcefulness, right? When you start building it, and if there's something external or something you don't have, whether it's a skill you don't have or a mindset you need, wo ho jayega. That will start happening because you feel I already have something working for me. So I'm going to start there and build on it. Okay. Just like that tortoise just kept moving forward with what he had, his small legs, his shell, his pace. Okay. The same way. These are three qualities. And along with these three qualities, we have three values. Okay. Which also are very important for the strong shell. Okay. One, you pursue progress over perfection. Okay. This is very important for millennials, particularly because as a generation, we are perfectionists. Like we're perfectionists. We are for whatever societal sort of subtle points also we've picked up as well as not so subtle. The aim is I have to be perfect. I have to be better than everybody, and if I don't get it absolutely correct, I'm a failure. It's nothing is worth it. Okay. Like the person who comes first only counts, but second, third, fourth position don't count, right? Example like that. Those people who are still good, who are still a B plus person or a B or an A person, but not A plus person. It's that. Because those people are the ones which are the majority, right? Most people, everybody is not A plus person, right? Um, so it's very important for you to understand that just because I'm not perfect doesn't mean everything's a fail. I've made progress. Have you moved forward? Are you better than where you started out? Yes. Are you better than where you were yesterday? If yes, good. Take another step. Take another step. And that's how the work that you do on yourself, whatever you pursue, compounds. But if you pursue perfection, then everything is a failure. Everything is zero. Unless it's 100, it's zero. So this is the concept. The next one is basically understanding. I mean, loosely you can say, oh, you should be embracing change, and change is the only constant, change is good. But what does it really mean? What do you need to overcome to understand that change is okay? Your subconscious mind always feels unsafe whenever there is something like a change, even if that means you are doing something which is better for you. Okay, it's still different and unfamiliar for your subconscious mind, so it will have resistance. Resisting change is what we need to overcome. So we need to work through that, and that's something we need to look out for whenever we are doing any work, self work, getting clarity on changing your career. There will be some resistance. That resistance could show up like, oh, I'll get paid less. Is it less reputable? Okay. What are the skills? What will my identity be? Who will I be? Today, I am a lawyer. I have a whole law firm's identity at my back. I have that. But tomorrow, if I start my business, nobody knows me. I'm starting from zero. It doesn't count. All of this is resistance. Things that make you feel that it's better to stay where you are, right? That's a very important thing that we actively work on in turtling. Okay. Last but not the least, empowered people empower others. Okay. If there is something that is working for you, is it a hobby? Is it a skill? No matter how small it is, you are in a position of empowerment because that is a gift you have been endowed with. Okay. You have to use it to do some good, to help somebody else in any way. Does it mean I'm a kinder person? Okay. If does it mean I'm going to go out and serve other people using that? Does that mean I'm going to start a business based on that? It's all good. But if you are in a position of empowerment, and if you've done all this work in these 5 steps, or you've inculcated all of this in your life, then you are a person who is more empowered by this point. So think about how you can empower somebody else. Because I think I'm going to refer to our Indian culture in ending this answer, is that as Indians, and it doesn't matter what faith we follow, there is a sense of service. Empowering others is basically doing service. And why? Why is it there? Scientifically, doing something for someone else is what makes you happy. It's what makes us feel useful in a very primal sense. That's why this value is there. So it's packaged very nicely because we are speaking to young people and we want to keep it fun and relatable. This is how things made sense to me, because I wasn't as a child very deep into spirituality or religion or any such hard texts or concepts. But at the end of the day, the values that I got was you need to be a good person and you need to be grounded and humble. Now, how do you make sense in a world where you need to be successful, right? And hustling is happening around you. So this is how I was able to make it seem balanced. And that's how my clients, through our programs, work on these aspects. And that's how we sort of get clarity, we get confidence, we get success, and we make change. So, turtling in this way is a key to sort of transitioning in a happy way. Let's put it that way.
Wow, that's an amazing concept, to work on, and it's very well structured as well. But help me understand, how does it go along with the relativity of time? To be elaborating on it, we all have our own timelines to follow. And you also mentioned that we have our own progress, progress over perfection.
Yeah,
But now we have a circle of people, often referred to as inner circle,
yeah,
which keep pressuring us to be the perfect one out there,
Mhm.
to always align with the standards that society has set. We I had been reading some articles, and there have been cases where executives who have been earning ample amount of money, they've quit their jobs, gone back to their hometowns, either started farming or something that was their hobby, that was their inner calling.
Mhm.
But somewhere or the other, for a major portion of the society, they're not doing the right thing. The society constantly, jibes at them, constantly makes them feel low. How do you really combat that whole thing?
Let's put it this way, okay, Pulkit. I look at it like this. When you don't know yourself, when you are not grounded, right, there is a vacuum that's created. Okay, imagine this glass of water. Abhi isme pani hai. Okay, imagine this glass was empty. Okay, because I don't know myself. I don't know what this glass can do, what it can hold. Okay, now somebody can come and pour whatever they like into that glass because I've left it empty. Okay, that's what society, your inner circle, does. If you haven't done the inner work, if you haven't checked in with your resources, like I said, resourcefulness, self-awareness, if you haven't done that work, if you haven't taken stock, if you aren't aware of the things that energize you, the things that drain you, okay, what are your true skills, interests that you're aligned to? Okay. If you've not done that work, there's space for other people to tell you who you are, what you should do, and who you should be. Okay. That's what happens. Um, these executives that you said moved on and went to back to their hometown, started a farm, pursued a hobby, something more wholesome or something they felt more aligned to, right? What happened with them is that they realized that what they were doing was not working for them anymore. It wasn't fulfilling them. And they wanted fulfillment. They didn't feel like whatever work they were doing till then was not making the kind of impact they wanted to do it. Probably wasn't fulfilling a service attitude for them, right? Like I mentioned, the empowerment. That's why they said, oh, this is something that I can do, right? Now society might say, oh, you have so much more time left, you can contribute to the economy in so many different ways, you're wasting your expertise and things like that, right? But did that person stop doing what he did? He moved, right? He's running that farming business or doing whatever. He's happy. So people may try to comment, but if you know what you are doing, it's not going to affect you as much. One, two, who your inner circle is very important. And as you start changing, you will realize that some people are not fitting into your vision of who you want to be and who you are. Now, that could be family members, okay, in some situations. It's not always easy to, uh, you know, just eliminate family members. We don't really do that in our culture, at least. So, in that case, it's all the more important for you to keep doing your inner work. That can involve spiritual work, that can involve mindset and emotional healing, right? To understand that those people are coming from their place, but this is my place. And keep strengthening yourself, keep strengthening that shell, keep building that resilience. And you may need to take some mental health support, you may need to do some spiritual work, whatever works for you. But it's about making this really hard shell and keep moving on, because at the end of the day, when your family sees the results of how happy you are, how energetic, healthy you are, how fulfilled you are, the fact that you're doing what you want and you are successful, and that success compounds, that success is exponential and unlimited, their mindset will change. So, as you are changing and you're pursuing that path because you are feeling called to it, you end up being the change. And then that's how you impact other people's lives also. But if we keep basing our self worth based on what other people have to say, you will always be confused and you will never feel good enough. And
Understood.
I'm saying this because I've gone through it and I still go through it. And it started from this I'm not enough kind of thing. It started from me just wanting to please my parents until I realized that's not helpful to them or me or anything. So, and I see that a lot from my clients. So, this is a very valid question. And it's very, sorry, before I end, um, you gave the example of like an executive who's worked his life and then moved forward, right? That's also not very relevant to the younger generations now. Because there was this thing, right? Like I told you that our parents' generations or our previous generations, so that's Gen X boomers, right? The logic was first survive, just make it, get a stable job, make sure that your family is basically financially stable, then think about happiness, leisure, recreation, fulfillment, all of that. But that's not the case now, right? Like we discussed. All data will show you, as I'm sure you would be aware, that the younger generations are looking for, from day zero, for work that they want to do, where they are making an impact, where they are feeling like leaders, where they feel like they're adding value, and they're contributing, and they have some flexibility. The younger generations are extremely driven, self starters, and they want to succeed and they think big. They just don't think the same way. They don't want to wait their whole lives to do what they want to do. They believe that I can have it all, and they can. They can. What we need to instill in them is a little bit of patience and resilience.
Yep.
And that way, what you're called to doesn't have to be something that doesn't make you money. That's also a mindset that we need to sort of, a narrative that we have in our conversations that needs to change. That just because I'm called to something and I feel passionate about something, it doesn't mean I won't earn money out of it or I won't be successful. That's something that needs to evolve as well.
I agree. I agree. Um, just a follow-up question on this might be contradictory for a lot of people out there. But something that I've observed and specifically focusing on the Indian culture, there are a lot of unsaid, unresolved issues in each of the Indian family houses out there,
Yeah,
which often, gets manifested into the younger generation that's coming out. And
yeah,
it's sort of a generational trauma being passed upon.
yeah.
Our previous generations have, I would not say accepted it, but somewhere or the other found their ways to live with it.
Hmm.
And now, for the newer generations or the younger generations, people in the currently early 30s or the 20 to 30s phase, now they're figuring out ways to get out of that or put a break to that
Yeah,
generational trauma a lot
yeah.
that's happening. But at times, I do feel the previous generations should work on themselves as well, or probably go for therapy out there, seek
Me-
help. Which I know if anybody from the younger generation is gonna say in their family, is gonna be another whole argument gonna happen. Another Mahabharata series gonna start out there. But what are your thoughts? And how can the younger generation really navigate this through?
Hmm. That's a very good question, Pulkit, and I relate to it at a personal level as well. So I'm going to answer this question by giving you some of my personal examples as well as those of my clients, my individual and my enterprise clients. In my house also, my parents were not very open to this. Um, but life teaches you in different ways, and whether you take that mental health support or not, you will find a way, life will make you find a way that you may resonate with. So my father was not open to, seeing a therapist, and he was feeling very vulnerable. But he found his way through spirituality. He was a person, he went through a crisis in his life, a very, very, deep crisis at a very later stage in his life. And it was a very, very deep identity crisis. And there was a lot of sort of age related, crises as well that he experienced. And it used to really get me at my core, saying, this is affecting me. And see, this is what I'm doing as my work now. And, I can help you, or I know so many different kinds of people that can support you, should be ready to explore. But he was just feeling too vulnerable. So actually, one thing is, our generations need to understand that we can't push them. Just like we sometimes begrudge our parents for pushing us, saying, "I know it's for your own good." As we grow older in our 20s and 30s, we can't do the same for our parents because everybody is a little child on the inside. The best that you can do is work on your own, encourage them, let them know there are options. Maybe if you learn something new, share it with them gently and with compassion. Um, I know my father is open to, watching Netflix shows and YouTube and things like that. So sometimes if I see something, I send him a link and leave it. I received some kind of email, I forwarded it to him gently and left it without being attached to it. And sometimes he would come back and say, oh, this really impacted me. This was a very interesting perspective. He was more open to spirituality and things like that. And he, through his own friends, he started having some conversations with them. And, he found his way to heal. It may not be your way. It may not be as hard and fast and as structured and organized as we are doing in our generations, but that's there. I would say, yes, it can be touchy, for our parents to go through this because they feel that I've lived my whole life, I've experienced life a certain way. It's very, it's again change, right? It's a huge change to say now at 55, 60, 65, I should just change the way I look at myself in the world. It's scary for them. So letting them know that there are ways that they can feel better is an option. But if they're not open to it, I think that's something that we may need to work on accepting in ourselves. And this is something that I understand that we as millennials and Gen Z may not like saying, I had to go through the hard treatment. Now I'm healing, and now I have to go through the whole process of holding space for you, you being the parents. And the answer is yes, because you can. And it's actually a privilege. So let's make ourselves stronger. And I've seen this in my parents. My mother went through a crisis as well. My whole family went through a crisis, and I saw this through this transition. It was a very difficult time for me personally. She found her sort of therapy and mental health support through lots of spiritual practices, through healing modalities and things like that. If that's something someone is open to, it's a safe space. But let them find their own path, like you wished your parents let you find your own path. This is the chance for you to implement that.
Yep.
And that was the personal side. But um, a lot of my clients, my young clients also come saying, oh, but my parents want me to do this and it's so irritating and I know it's different. And I know this is right for me, but they are not listening. It's all about release and surrender. If you feel there is a way that you can be compassionate and gentle and pose an option to them. If some parent or some family member who is senior is going through a difficult time, take that space to understand them. You have this awareness. You're in a generation where people are talking about all of this, and there are so many ways. See how you can bring it into conversation. Ask them questions instead of imposing something on them. Be gentle and it'll compound. They will find their way. Um, a great way to bring this into older generations is bring mental health services to organizations and corporates where we still have some Gen X boomers, even in executive positions, and a lot of them are nearing so-called retirement age, right? And actually, Mel Robbins just had she just released there was a podcast of hers that I was listening to just yesterday, and she looks at each decade, 20s, 30s, 40s, and she also mentions that who decided that you need to retire at 60 or 65, right? It's not necessary. So the crises that people go through at the higher levels are still there. If they know, if you just, again, I'm saying this because you mentioned things, mental health is commoditized in the beginning, and why not, right? If it's packaged in a way that's palatable to that generation and it helps them, why not? So you will find executive coaches or lots of coaches who end up supporting executives at that stage in these matters. And maybe that's the way for them, right? Maybe I, want to just go to a therapist and say I'm going to therapy every week. But maybe somebody who is at the head of an organization and is the CEO and has been there for like done the same thing for 30, 40 years, um, he needs a different way of approaching his life. There's a lot of things that worked to get him there. And maybe this not all of them will be helpful. So it's about just giving them perspective, and maybe it's not your job to fix your parents.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like,
No, I can also personally relate to a lot of points that you
yeah,
mentioned, and
yeah,
I have been seeing my parents evolve, struggling a bit with the father, but yeah, mom is working on herself and
yeah,
evolving slowly and steadily.
yeah,
Um, Recently, I have also been looking at evolving out of certain things I was struggling with. I have started my own therapy as well, where I was looking for, validations from my parents that, okay, you are doing right.
yeah,
I was going within that structure that
Oh,
society has created. So now trying to get out of it, life has been really kind and has given me some experiences to evolve from. So now just accepting those things as they are coming, as I'm
mm,
moving forward.
yeah.
So finding progress over perfection, I would say that's the path I'm looking at. So
That's wonderful, Pulkit. I'm very happy for you. It's pretty
thank
brave.
I resisted therapy for a long time, but yes, again, a lot of conversations I've implemented a lot of things. I talk with a lot of coaches day in, day out with this podcast and the work I do. So I tried to implement a lot of things, but yes, finally I reached a stage where the self work was not really helping me and I had to evolve further.
Yeah.
So yeah, I decided I will go for therapy and been started working on myself. Let's see where it takes me.
It's going to take you to a good place. All the best.
Forward to it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Totally looking forward to that. Uh, Vasudha, you mentioned that your journey has been an evolutionary one, where
Yeah.
you have combated and evolved on your own challenges in your life.
Yeah.
What are the tools that really helped you, and how did they help you evolve?
Through this transition, through this phase.
Yeah.
The tools that helped me, I would say I had a therapist that I saw. That's how it started for me. I had a therapist who I worked with for about a year and a half. So I would definitely say having some kind of a therapist definitely helps. After a while, spirituality came into my life. My family is not very religious. And we all are encouraged to find some connection to self or divinity in our own way. So spirituality came into my life at a time when I did not believe anything, and that helped me connect with my inner self. Um, that and then the fact that I wanted to empower people. So the process of becoming a coach involves the training process involves you sort of learning a lot of those coaching tools on your own and sort of doing it firsthand and being coached through the process. So evolving from therapy into coaching. So coaching was another tool. And then, of course, EFT tapping came into my life, and that was like a catalyst, which hastened my progress a lot. So I would say a lot of, oh, yeah, and of course, journaling. And because it's a way of connecting with yourself. If I go to a spiritual route, it's a way of also channeling downloads. Sometimes when you're writing in a flow and you're processing your emotions and your thoughts, and you have a question that is not being answered, if you're in that state, you will know that you will just end up writing something and be like, I wrote this, that's me. That's probably the divinity in you, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. But it's a great sort of, way to resource yourself. Um, so I would say that apart from the happy turtling ingredients, which I look at as tools for myself, therapy, EFT tapping, which is also a therapeutic modality, coaching, having some sort of intervention is a tool that really, really helps. Other than that, I mean, I'm saying these things because they're the base level work, okay? Before you do something tangible or take action. I think at least something should be there between therapy, spirituality, and coaching. And there are lots of things within this, different kinds of coaches, different forms of spirituality and faith, and different forms of therapy, right? One of them is essential. I've tried all of them and I go through all of them as well, depending on what phase I'm in. Once you have that, then I would definitely say take bold action. So for me, it was um, fitness, like movement, moving your body. So once I was in a space where I had made some peace or healed my relationship with my body a bit, I was more comfortable moving. So lots of movement, meeting new people, um, just all of this basically, people. So the fact is that we get advice saying you should make friends, be social, meet people, move your body, eat healthy, all of that. Those are all doing things, like tangible actions. The reason you can't do them is because there's something internal happening that's blocking you, either energetically if you believe in that, emotionally, or you could just, maybe you don't have some tools or you just need some structure. So let's do that first and then sort of, take those steps, step out of your comfort zone.
Can you elaborate a bit on EFT tapping? How does it work? What modality it is, and what's the science behind it?
Definitely, definitely. So basically, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, EFT, right? And loosely we say EFT tapping or just tapping, okay? Where we use our fingertips to lightly tap on parts of our face and our upper body while speaking out loud. There's a certain sequence to it and certain methods to it, but the point of EFT tapping is to balance your body and your mind and bring about emotional regulation. Okay. So that's why it's a therapy because it's used to sort of, yes, heal your any emotional issues or bring about emotional regulation. But it's also rooted in, so I'm going to give you two sort of ways of how, where it finds its roots, right? And that's the magic of EFT tapping that it's like so versatile and anybody can apply it, right? Um, it's got like a spiritual, energetic side as well as a purely neuroscience and physiological side. Okay. So I'll take this side first, the neuroscience side first. Okay. When you tap, you're sending kinetic energy through your body. Your neurons are active, that energy is going, so they're firing more. That sort of makes your brain processing stronger, faster. Okay. The act of tapping creates what is called bilateral eye movements. This bilateral eye movement also happens when you are in REM sleep, the stage of sleep when your brain is doing a lot of processing, healing, things like that. Okay? You're doing this in the waking state. Bilateral eye movements happen with a few other activities as well, such as journaling, writing, few other activities. You must have heard of EMDR therapy, things like that. So, similarly with EFT tapping, also, that's what's happening. What does that do? It is activating your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind is very active. That has the effect of bringing up any suppressed emotions or memories that would have been sort of archived in the folders of your mind. And it brings them to the surface for you to know, okay, this is what's happening. Because your subconscious mind is open, imagine like an operating table and your surgeon is doing the surgery and your body is open. It's like that. That's what happens. So you've sort of opened up all of this so you can pick and choose what you want to access and what you want to do with it. Basically, a memory or a belief system, and then start a new neural pathway, which you can, because your subconscious mind is open, you have to do less work to make that neural pathway stronger so that that's your new mindset or new emotion, and you can heal the past trauma or emotion. So that's the sort of the scientific part of it. EFT is based on the concept that even if you have some physiological issue, so if you have like an ache or a pain or like anything happening in your body, ranging from a like a disease, like a cancer, an autoimmune disease, or just like, oh, I have tightness in my chest, all of it is the same. It means that there is some emotion blocked there, right? So what the mind suppresses, the body expresses. You must have heard that phrase.
Yeah.
It's that. Okay, so what does EFT do? It's rooted in ancient Chinese medicine or South Indian marma therapy, where there are energy meridians or points all through our body, right? You must have heard of acupressure, acupuncture, which
Yep.
are come from Chinese medicine and even South Indian Burma therapy, right? So, what is the concept of that? Acupuncture is they put needles in some parts, okay, specific areas, because that's where there are the points of the energy meridians or those channels, right? Those are the hot spots, you can call it, like an energy hotspot. The needle is put there so that whatever is trapped there can come out. Or acupressure, you put pressure so that it moves out of that. Same with EFT tapping, you send that kinetic energy to clear out any blockages in those energy channels. So essentially, that's the purpose of EFT tapping. If you have a condition that has developed over a period of time, say a hormonal imbalance, for instance, right? It's chronic. It's or basically it's developed over a period of time. So that means whatever that emotion was accumulated. So what some event happened in the past, you were unable to fight it. You had some kind of a fawn reaction because of which you made some your subconscious mind or you consciously made a decision saying I cannot do this or else this will happen, or in order for this to happen I need to do this or I need to behave like this. That's how a belief system gets formed because of a certain event. Most of these belief systems that get formed when we are within the ages of 0 to 6 years old, when the human is in a hypnogargic state. It's in a brain waves, it's in a state, your brain is in a particular state where it can absorb, it is massively downloading and absorbing everything. That's when we are most influenced from our by our inner circle, our parents, teachers, whoever we are exposed to in that age group. And we even pick up things subtly. So, an example would be like if a baby falls, the baby doesn't know it's gotten hurt or it's a bad thing to fall. It's because you react and say, oh no, oh no, oh no. So you create that anxiety. So that's how they pick up. The child picks up 1 year, 2 years. Oh, it's not safe for me to fall. And then, have you seen when a child falls or gets hurt, there's a gap and then they cry because
Yeah.
they look at your reaction and respond to that. So there are many things like this which we pick up and form these belief systems, and then those strong neural pathways get formed and reinforced through your life. Similarly, any stage in your life, somebody says, I've been having a headache for the past 1 month. As a therapist, as an EFT therapist, I will ask, okay, when did it start? What was happening in your life at that time? A part of a subconscious mind is still stuck in that phase. By doing EFT tapping, you bring that जो पीछे था past का आगे लाके, bring it into the present, semi relive it. We don't allow you to get re-traumatized, but you sort of semi relive it so that you can address it, resolve it, and release it, and then install something more helpful.
Well, that's huge science behind supporting the whole concept of EFT out there. I was also checking out the website of Happy Turtling, and it mentions something called matrix reimprinting. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. Yes. So, matrix reimprinting is sort of an extension or very, very advanced application of EFT. This concept of matrix reimprinting is founded by this gentleman named Carl Dawson. Carl Dawson is one of the first few people who learned from the original founder of EFT tapping, Gary Craig. Gary Craig had one class where he taught a small number of uh, sort of practitioners. They were researchers, psychologists, things like that. And he taught them this, and each of them, some of them actually added their own sort of twist to it. Not twist, but their own sort of value addition on how they can take this out into the world and do, make a greater impact with it. Carl's contribution was matrix re-imprinting.
Okay.
Essentially, what we do in EFT tapping, like I explained to you, you're just tapping. Okay, you're speaking out loud, bringing up your emotions, accepting those emotions, making peace with them, and releasing them. Okay, EFT has the impact of neutralizing the intensity, okay, of your discomfort, whether it is pain or emotional intensity. So imagine if we start from minus, okay, your intensity was a -10. So very high intensity of whatever your emotion you're experiencing or this physical discomfort you're experiencing, and tapping, karke, you come to a neutral point, which is 0. Now a vacuum is created, and we want to install a more positive sort of thing. You can do that just by tapping. But the most powerful thing, like I said, is to have a new neural pathway or rewrite or overwrite an old neural pathway. That's what matrix reimprinting is. How do we do that? You access your memories. So if I'm feeling anxious right now, I will try to remember as far back and try to get to 0 to 6 if possible. Your practitioner may take some time to get you there if you can't remember it. Um, but you try to access your memories in that 0 to 6 state. And you sort of meet that past version of yourself. Okay, so you go into the matrix. So when you work with a memory with EFT tapping, you narrate that memory or you work with it like you're watching a movie, maybe. So I'm watching a younger version of Vasudha on a movie screen in front of me. I'm very far away or dissociated from it. And we use some of those techniques to neutralize our emotions, right? Once I'm neutralized, I have now scope to step into the scene. So from it being a movie, or imagine Willy Wonka's chocolate factory where you go inside the TV, or also another way of thinking of this example is you step onto stage. So this whole play is playing out on stage, and now you are also coming onto stage. And now you're a character. You're playing a role in how that scene is playing out. So you're going onto stage or going into the TV is going into the matrix. Interacting with your past self is a kind of inner child healing, because you go to that past version of yourself where we feel that neural pathway was first formed, and we change the scene. So we meet that person, that past version of ourselves. It's called an echo, emotionally conscious hologram. Okay, technical word. Um, and we sort of interact with them. So I would meet my younger self and say, I'm here to support you. I am Vasudha from 2025, and I'm here to meet Vasudha from 1990 or 2000, right? Um, and I'm here. Tell me how you're feeling in this moment and what's going on and what do you need. So you sort of resource that version of yourself, with your practitioner, of course. And by doing that, you do that healing for them. So that um, trauma in that situation gets neutralized. So they've given what they get, what they need in the subconscious realm, which they may not have gotten in the tangible realm. But by doing that, um, you don't carry that same narrative with you in the present. So you sort of resource them and you give them what they need, and then they're like, okay, now I'm safe. Now I'm okay. I have what I need. And then you tell them what is the ideal, like what more do you want to make this even better? So you're rewriting, like how we used to have cassettes and tapes, and you put the tape and you record on top of something that's already recorded, and then it
Yeah.
gets mixed up. It's literally like that. You overwrite it, or you overwrite a CD, for example. I don't know if Gen Z will get this reference, but you basically overwrite it. So
Yeah.
you're not just, because see, neural pathways, once they are formed, they don't, you can't actually cancel them, but they can get weakened if other neural pathways are stronger. So what we're doing is you're kind of rebraiding something. You're opening out the threads of something and you're adding a few more threads and sort of rebraiding it, rewiring it. And that's the effect of matrix reimprinting, where EFT neutralizes the intensity of your emotions and helps you regulate and balance yourself. Matrix reimprinting then helps you sort of catapult into your desired reality by deeply healing you. So we use matrix reimprinting for very, very deep traumas or very strong, limiting belief systems. So all this belief work happens with matrix reimprinting.
Okay. Well, that's something new that I got to know today. And Masuda, before we conclude, any final message you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would say, please, check in with the aspects in your life that you don't feel very good about. What's draining your energy, right? Where do you feel completely exhausted? What are the areas in your life where you feel absolutely existential, physically drained, mentally drained? And then check in with what are those areas in your life where you feel energized, where you feel alive. Try to do more of those things. Try to see how you can bring them in professionally if that's not happening. If you're confused or you need some support, there are lots of people out there. We at Happy Turtling are always here. And please reach out for support to whomever you feel comfortable that can help you navigate these aspects, because we deserve to live a good life. There may be a lot of things happening in the world. That's all the more reason for us to find happiness, energy, and life as much as we can. So, yeah, and don't chase. There's no need to chase. Don't run the rat race. If you feel insecure, if you feel like, you're in a lack space, reach out for support, and you can come out of it. Life is long and it deserves to be lived happily.
I totally agree with you, Vasudha, on this. And thanks a lot for, sharing such pearls of wisdom with our listeners today.
Absolute pleasure, Pulkit. Thank you so much for also sharing your anecdotes, and great speaking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Same here, same here. Pleasure. I'm sure the listeners are going to be enjoying this conversation. And I'm hoping that at least one person gets to start and navigate their journey to a fulfilling life out there.
Yeah, it's there. It's definitely there. It's waiting for you.
Yep. And listeners, I'm sure many of you would have been nodding along and maybe feeling a mix of relief and curiosity. Remember, that's your inner self acknowledging the truths that often get buried beneath responsibilities and accountabilities that we are surrounded with. And if today's episode brought up any thoughts, emotions, or questions, you don't have to hold them in. Head over to our anonymous mental health platform. The link is in the description, or reach out to the people in your vicinity or to Vasudha for the support that you require. Once again, until next time, stay tuned and remember, we are listening. Thank you.